You're listening to the RMPodcast, the official podcast of Red Moon Productions. Here are your hosts, Brandon Davidson, Keith Cheatham, and Sean Sebastian. Enjoy.
Welcome to another episode of the Red Moon Podcast. Live every single Tuesday night right here on all your favorite social media platforms. We are here to entertain. We thank you all for tuning in. I'm one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside he's absent this week, but there he is in remembrance. Did the Commanders take him? Or maybe he's just celebrating his son's birthday.
Celebrate son's birthday. Come on.
And Mr.
Celebrate. Happy birthday, Andrew.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Oh, hey, that's way better than the sequel.
Yeah.
What was the sequel again?
Let there be snow.
So
That wasn't the sequel. That was the unofficial. That actually is not an official sequel to Frosty.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
It's not?
No, that was
because it's not Rankin Bass.
Yes, yeah,
that's right.
The CBS made that as like a unofficial. I mean, they called it Frosty Returns because obviously they want to bank off of the original.
They had to.
It was crap.
They had to try to take off that success, but it didn't work.
This kind of weather brings people together so friendships can grow.
And freaking John Goodman, man.
There be snow. I'm singing better than he did.
Yeah. I mean, and that was John Goodman's early days, and it was like, I mean, it honestly reminds me of the Tom Hanks
Think
clip.
about it. I mean, at that time, John Goodman was...
What are we doing, guys?
Well, he was... Actually, John Goodman was... Well, actually, it wasn't that because John Goodman was actually popular. That's why he was in it, because they thought it would bring viewers.
Oh, that's
that
true.
would have been like the Roseanne heydays when they're like, let's get John Goodman.
So that was in the 90s.
Yeah,
Man, that art style's awful.
Yeah.
For what we saw in the 90s.
It was bad.
Hold on. I got to get my stand goal.
Get your stand goal.
All right, well, I'm showing people how I cheat. I got to stand up because I'm trying to beat Melissa.
1992.
Beat Melissa. She's got a competition going.
Beat her.
And she's already got 600 points, which is the max you can get for the day. We got a little Apple Watch competition going. I'm going to beat her this week.
Beat her.
You can get max 16 points, and I'm up to, hold on. She's already at it. I'm at 473 right now. But I'm about to go past 500 when I get this stand.
500.
And then the next thing I got to do is I got to double my move ring. Nobody out there knows unless you're an Apple Watch owner. But even still, I wanted to just prove a point that Melissa, yeah, you see me? I'm coming after you, okay? You're not gonna win this
coming
week.
after you.
Jacob, your wife is in danger. All right?
She's in danger.
I'm gonna beat her in the competition. Alrighty, guys. So we're here, obviously. I didn't get it. Hold on. I gotta get it.
Wow.
This is how you cheat, though.
What a failure.
If Apple's watching, this is how you cheat to get your stand goal.
Yep, that's how you do it. I've done it in the theater.
Everybody does it. Well, that's the thing. If you're sitting there for 2 hours, I'm not going to miss the 2 hours.
Here's the thing, though. Because I get
can't do that.
The point is so you're not constantly on your butt all day.
Right.
But if I've say there's...
There it is. I got it. I got 14 hours.
You're supposed to stand for 1 minute each hour of the day, which, just to get you off your butt. But if there's an hour where I've been on my feet for the whole hour anyways, I'm just because I missed this 1 hour, I've been active plenty. I knocked over Sean's plaque. That's it. The
Commanders have taken him.
He's gone.
He's gone. That's it. It's over. Sorry, Sean.
Sean will no longer be returning. The plaque is
Andrew
fallen.
will fulfill your seat next week and say goodbye to you properly. Maybe he can beckon the Commanders to bring you back. We'll see. But I do, other than the competition, I agree with you, too. It's I've done enough throughout the day. I mean, I've got 14 stand hours.
The point is
and most of those are legitimate.
Yeah. No, well, I mean, there's this, I'd say usually I get over 12 anyways.
Yeah. Well, and you can only so if you meet 12 hours of your stand goal, you get 200 points.
Yeah.
If you double your move ring, you get 200 points. And if you double your exercise ring, you get 200 points. I get why they have... It kind of sucks because you can only hit 600, and if you meet 600 every day of the week, all week, then you tie. But I also get it, too, because they can't encourage you to just go to a ridiculous extent. Because there's people out there who will burn thousands of calories and put their body in danger.
Just to win, yeah.
It's just ridiculous.
It's I'm going to exercise for a full 18 hours today.
Plus, I will say it's also... It goes based on your I have
It is based
Mine
on...
is 600. My move goal is 600 calories a day.
Mine's 750.
So, yeah.
Which I'm actually going to bump up because that's been easy. So.
Oh, well, okay, and that's the difference. Which you're a little bit bigger.
Well, I'm bigger.
You're a bigger
so
guy. I don't burn as much.
Any amount of
It takes
exercise
hard-
is going to
yeah.
burn until I start getting smaller. Like that's
And
when,
so
you know.
I've got to hit 1,200 calories.
Yeah.
But if I go over the 12 hours and I get more additional points, then I don't have to quite double my move rate.
Yep.
So I'm trying to basically I'm going to hit 600 points every day though to make sure Melissa doesn't beat me.
That's right. You need to.
Yeah, we're training for the Triple Crown and the Mini.
The mini.
Got to do our exercise. Get that New Year's resolution working. Also though, Jeremy Renner's home. Jeremy Renner is out of the hospital. He is back home. It is great news to hear that Jeremy
Renner
Renner
home Sunday. He got to watch the season 2 premiere of his show. I think Mayor of Kingstown, the one from Taylor Sheridan, who did Yellowstone.
Sure that's it.
Yeah, the creator of Yellowstone also made this show. Yeah, it's on Paramount Plus. It did get a lot of great reviews. I've not seen it, but its second season premiered, and he was home in time to watch it with his family, which is cool.
It's one of my shows. When I say shows, I don't just mean Yellowstone. I mean 1883 and 1923 as well.
I loved 1883.
Well, and I've heard, so that was a singular season.
Yeah,
because apparently it ends
1883
where 1923 picks up.
It's just a no, 1923 picks up several years later. But
yeah. Well, obviously, but I mean it picks up where the end of the story of 1883 ends.
I wouldn't say that either. But
Really?
yes, it follows that. It still follows the family.
I'm calling out Mike at work. You told me wrong, bud. You told me wrong.
Well, the story in 1883 is over, so I'm not sure. Like, there's a new.
Well, but it's the same family.
Well, yeah, it always is.
So
it's
continues.
Yellowstone.
Well,
it's the Duttons. Yeah.
And that's what I was going to
say.
say.
But I would say picks up because it's a completely new plot. It's just the same.
But
family.
is 1923 going to be a singular season, just like 1883?
No, it's going to be 2 seasons.
Okay.
It's still planned as a minute. So 1883 was a 10-episode, one season thing that tells a whole very cinematic story. Like I loved 1883.
I gotta watch it.
1923 is I think going to only be 8 episodes, but 2 seasons, and it's fairly. It's a lot different, but also cinematic. So and it kind of shows in some of the casting too. The fact that Yellowstone, you have Kevin Costner. 1883 had I forget the country singers' names, and everybody's
Tim McGraw.
Tim McGraw and his wife
Faith Hill.
Thank you.
She is
along with Sam Elliott,
and
which
Harrison Ford.
Well,
he's 1923.
Yeah, and so
and Helen Mirren.
now 1923 has Harrison Ford, Helen Mirren. I forget there's another guy I've seen in all kinds of stuff. And I'll have to look. He was in Game of Thrones.
He's not the hunk that everybody's.
No. And he played the guy, the sellsword in Game of Thrones that was with Tyrion for most of the time.
Oh,
yes, I love him.
Okay.
He's the main antagonist in 1923, and he's been fantastic.
Oh, I do love that guy. I love him in Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
He's willing to go where the wind blows, and he's like, it's business.
It's funny though, he's a very different character in this, but still just as well acted. Like because
awesome.
he is he's been a fantastic antagonist.
When you see that dynamic, nature play out in actors, that shows you they're real good actors. But also, but that was one of my goals. My goals was because I started Yellowstone, and I even told you I wasn't feeling it for certain reasons, but I have to give it enough time, is what I've been told. And now that they have this fully kind of fleshed out world. And
I get annoyed when shows do a lot of spin-offs because sometimes I'm like, it's unwarranted. Then it gets like Walking Dead is way too huge, way too bloated. They just dumb. But actually, because these have been just the one-off kind of miniseries, and they do tie into the history of Yellowstone.
Yeah.
And they even kind of foreshadow certain events that play out in the seasons.
Right.
I'm like, it's really well done because there's things that are touched on in 1883 that you kind of see coming into play in the new season. It is all really well woven together.
Well, and even you just telling me that 1923 is only 2 seasons planned out, and I even asked the guy at work, I was like, does this mean too that they could continue on with 30-40 year gaps, decade jumps leading up to current day Yellowstone?
I think that's his
and then
plan.
really
I don't know,
after Yellowstone wraps, kind of just call it all one cohesive story and saga. And I actually, like you said, it's one of those that easily could have been tropish, and I would have been like, nah. I mean, honestly, when 1883 first got dropped, I was kind of like, oh, here we go.
Yeah,
we're just going to get a bunch of spin-off crap, and it's all going to be the same.
I think Sean disagrees with me on this, but I actually liked 1883 more than Yellowstone itself. So.
And they're on season 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, I love Yellowstone.
They-
That's not a knock against Yellowstone.
Right. But are they done? Or are they going to have 2-3 more seasons? How many more are they going with?
I don't think there's going to be a lot more. I do know that there's at least I know this isn't planned as the last. I kind of wonder, based on what he's building with the other stuff. I really don't see it. I feel like 6 or 7 might be it. I could be wrong, because they do kind of, the way it's building, you kind of get an idea of what the whole overarching thing is going to be, because obviously it's this family defending their ranch that's been in their family for generations. So it's them trying to, and each season is kind of some different. There are some of the same antagonists, but then there's also kind of new ones, and it's not all it would get old fast, I think, if it was only just them. I'm defending the ranch every season,
right? And
you do kind of with 1883 and 1923 and from season 3 on of Yellowstone, you kind of see this through line of where it's going. That it's not just there's actually connective tissue. I'm okay, I get this. This is no longer just every season he's me and my ranch.
It easily could get tiresome real quick with that.
There's definitely a character that kind of makes themselves. I don't want to spoil it too much.
Don't.
But so
I'm looking forward to it, and it's because not only is it popular, but the fact that I had already started the journey several months back, I'm
you
know what?
This more than our review that we haven't gotten to yet.
I was going to say, I was bringing that up because, as you could tell, the reason we're a little long-winded on this is because maybe our review is just not worthwhile to talk about in much detail.
Yellowstone's way better.
But real quick, you brought it up, and I think probably next week when Sean's back, if the Commanders will it, a little tease. We'll probably do it for our story time. But you had just brought up the Walking Dead and how it's getting tiresome. And I'm like, well, some might even say, is it too late for The Last of Us, which is now in a series on HBO Max.
It had a popular premiere.
I did watch it. I don't know if you watched it.
I've seen it.
Okay, I don't want to say our opinions right away. We don't have Sean here.
Yeah.
But
it had a massive premiere. I know it's funny because I think even HBO Max is one of their banners is a critic saying better than Walking Dead. They kind of took a jab at
of course.
Yeah.
It's only because Walking Dead just ended and it had 11, 12 seasons?
11 seasons and plus all the 3 spinoffs that they're currently making, and I'm just it's just dumb. Too much. Yeah.
I mean, we'll talk. We'll dive deeper, I think, next week when Sean's back. That's the fair thing to do when we can all talk about The Last of Us.
I know he really wants to talk about it.
And maybe.
And by then there'll be 2 episodes out, and they'll give us an even better idea of because it is weekly, like House of the Dragon was. So,
and honestly, I'll at least say that about it. I'm glad it came out now. It would have been very easy to push this in October or a late fall to fit Halloween.
Well, then it would have been competing with HBO wouldn't want them both competing against each other.
And honestly, I completely understand why they put House of the Dragon up against Rings of Power, which we all know how that fared.
That was just brilliant. Obviously, they just smacked that thing out of the wall.
Completely. But yes, all right. We've talked enough, rambled enough. Let's now get into. Unfortunately, we do have to talk about it. The movie we went and saw. Not gotten a lot of buzz. It's been out for a few weeks, and there's a reason why it's not gotten a lot of buzz. Here is our review of Babylon.
Oh, where to begin? What is left to say about Babylon that audiences and critics haven't already said? Is it shocking that depravity exists in Hollywood? Is it surprising that Hollywood spends its time both decrying and praising said depravity? Is it bewildering that the irony of Hollywood's double standards is lost upon them? Not really, not anymore. And yet, despite it becoming the sad normality in the films of those supposed to be the best in Hollywood, the Oscar auteurs, it still hasn't grown any less tiresome to see. Next up on the list of brilliant directors turned pretentiously shallow is Damien Chazelle, the man who made the brilliant and actually Oscar-deserving films Whiplash and La La Land. His latest, Babylon, was highly anticipated. And after 2 Oscar-nominated films, one of which many feel was robbed of Best Picture, critics and fans eagerly awaited what Oscar-worthy film Babylon would turn out to be. Set in 1920s Hollywood and depicting the transition of silent pictures into talkies, and starring the likes of Brad Pitt and Margot Robbie, Babble On depicts the people who built Hollywood in an attempt at being a part of something that lasts forever, and achieving the type of immortality that comes with fame, all the while highlighting the bohemian Wild Wild West that was the true seedy underbelly of Hollywood that's always existed. All in just 3 short hours. Oh, gag me. Overindulgent, self-indulgent, pretentious, and pedantic, I'm not sure there are enough words to describe how bloated and full of bullcrap this film is. Let's get the good out of the way first, as there's not much to praise. The film is sometimes entertaining. Chazelle's dialogue, which is normally witty, sharp, and humorous, gets to be so on occasion. Juxtaposed against the exorbitant amount of smut, there are times when the depravity serves its purpose, and I did have a few genuine laughs. Ultimately, though, it does become too excessive. Scenes play out too long, and even when there is no depravity, Chazelle lingers too long on emotional scenes or thematic moments so as to drive home his point. But after so much overindulgence, it feels more like being bludgeoned with the point rather than emphasizing it. Now don't get me wrong, I'm no prude. I'm not decrying the raunchier parts of the film for puritanical purposes, but due to the fact that after a while, it's just crass for the sake of being crass, and serves no purpose. Over the course of the film, at no point did I care about the characters on screen, depicted with zero redeeming qualities, as they fight to be a part of something bigger while wallowing in immorality, and learning no lessons as they ruin their lives with terrible decisions. And even that would be fine if that was the film's point. But by its end, the movie expects us to feel sorry for these characters as they receive their comeuppance, and their debauchery is painted more as being freeing than wrong. Just broken people trying to leave their mark as society passes them by. Even the ground Babble On treads has been done before. The transition of silent era film to sound has been covered many times and better. Most recent was Best Picture winning film The Artist, but even Babble On showcases Singing in the Rain, which also covered the same motif, though Babble On does so to emphasize what its tragic characters built while being left behind. Likewise, the debaucherous angle and ideas of broken people trying to find their way is also not new, and reeks of a poor man's Boogie Nights. At least in Boogie Nights, the film emphasizes the hollowness of its character's lifestyle and doesn't sugarcoat the consequences of its character's decisions. Instead, Babble On tries hard to sell its revisionist history of a completely immoral 1920s Hollywood, so as to showcase how modern Hollywood is actually a much better place than Hollywood of the past. And no doubt, depravity has always existed in Hollywood. It has always existed in an echo chamber where such depravity can grow. But if every day was as excessive as displayed in Babble On, every production company would have gone under. Somebody had to have been sober enough to actually have made, produced, and profited off of the films that made Hollywood what it is today. With unoriginal themes done better in other movies, characters impossible to like, and 3 hours of over-the-top nonsense, Babble On is just too much of everything currently wrong in Hollywood, while trying to preach to you about everything the modern degenerates perceive used to be wrong in Hollywood. It's the pot calling the kettle black, then praising itself for being self-aware. I don't know who this movie is for, but I can't believe it was made by the man who did La La Land. I give Babble On 1.5 out of 4 stars.
Wow.
Yeah.
1.5 out of 4 stars. There it is, guys.
It was some hot garbage. Which pained me. Here's the thing. Going into this movie, even though I knew it got bad reviews from both critics and audiences, there was some part of me that hoped, because I loved Whiplash. I love La La Land.
Yep.
First Man I didn't love, but it was still a good movie. It was good. So it's like Damien Chazelle has knocked 3 movies out of the park and been praised for them, and I'm like, maybe there's just something about this movie that Hollywood hates because Hollywood is Hollywood.
And let's think about this too. Just because you did bring up First Man, I mean,
I didn't mention it in the review, but
but he had to have made enough money with Whiplash and La La Land that they were willing to stake it, because First Man was a flop.
Yeah.
Even though it got rave reviews critically, we reviewed it favorably.
Yeah.
But even
No one
then,
went to see it.
nobody
Yeah.
saw that movie. And it's like, to have a flop and then immediately release another huge big budget blockbuster.
Yeah.
That's a period piece that has Brad
That's
Pitt,
3
Margot
hours
Robbie.
long.
That's 3 hours long
Yeah.
in excess. They must have really thought. I mean, that's the thing is, irregardless of what we say about this film, whether you agree or disagree if you've seen it,
Yeah.
you can't sit here and say the studio held anything back on Chazelle.
No.
They gave him
Well,
every
even he
opportunity to do
says-
what he
he
wanted
says-
with this film.
Because he's defended some of like, he's like, I knew going in, like, because he said he went in and made the movie he wanted to make, and that he knew it would ruffle some feathers and make some people angry. Though it's funny because the way he defends it, I'm like, I don't think you fully understand. It's not just like this pure, like I even said in my review, it's not this puritanical reason that I'm like, oh, this is smut. Because I mean, it is smut, but it's like, it's because it serves no purpose.
Right.
And you think it does, but at the end of the day, when I watch your movie, I realize it's like, no, the point you're trying to make has been made better in other movies. Has been done just as well without the excess.
I told you that I had found out prior to seeing it. It was only about maybe a few days before seeing it.
Yeah.
That this one of the major plot points was revealed that it was silent into the talkies.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here, and as soon as I heard that, the first movie that popped in my head was The Artist.
The Artist, yeah.
And as soon as we started watching this, about an hour in, we're sitting here talking about.
I was like, man, this is like the Artist did this better.
Yes.
They actually showcase Singing in the Rain in the movie, and that movie does it better. It's funny how they use that movie as like this crutch of, look at what these people made. Like, that movie wouldn't exist without these people who were just crapped on it and trod upon it. And it's like, you're right, but it still handles it better than this movie. So you kind of ruin your own point by having a better movie in here.
100%. And even with the way in which I don't care. Look, if you're really worried about spoilers, turn away. But
It's not worth it.
it's not.
It's 3 hours and 10 minutes that you're gonna regret wasting the time.
No, absolutely. And the way it ends, like you said, with one of our main characters, which let's just get that out of the way. I don't. It's not that Margot Robbie does a bad job, not that Brad Pitt does a bad job.
None of these characters are likable.
Even Manny, I forget his name because he's an unknown, but even he does a good job.
Yeah.
The acting is fine. The dialogue is fine. It's just, it's long, laborious, and ultimately there are some unrealistic moments based on the world of believability that, Chazelle sets for us. They do cross that line. Two scenes in particular, and I'll bring those up. But ultimately, it's like, not that the acting is bad. It's the ultimate point at which we're driven to, and like you said, the characters are just unlikable. They have no redeeming qualities. We're supposed to somehow believe that they're chasing after this artful lifestyle and giving all they have to make sure it happens is something worth fighting for in the end when they've given it all up. And that's all they've ever chased. And it's just like, no, it's sad and tragic. And if there's anything, it screams irredeemability. It screams, don't be like these people. But yet you see one character, possibly two, the Sidney Palmer, whatever. A trumpet player who
jazz musician who
walks away from
he was
being
the only one with integrity.
Right.
Yeah.
And you kind of somewhat see that with Manny to a degree of, he's somewhat forgiven in the end.
But by the point he reaches that, I'm just like, no, he's just as culpable as everyone else.
Well, of course so.
Even if he didn't commit the acts,
The only reason he's not in today's standards is because he's Hispanic. Same with Sidney's character. It's because he's black. So I hate to say it, but it's very clear the diversity plays a role in terms of the moral code of the film. It's ridiculous. But to go back to the point I was trying to make of the two unrealistic scenes, the one is Margot Robbie gets a snake bite on her neck and flails around, and it's not even comical or slapstick funny. It's just absolutely ridiculous based on where it's at in the film and how it comes about. And it's like, no, she would be dead.
Yeah,
she would absolutely
100%.
be dead. And then the other one was what was the other scene that I'm trying to think of? There were two specifically. I'll have to think of it. Damn.
I'm not sure which one. I've blacked most of the movie out. I remember.
It's definitely a good thing.
No, the snake scene I agree, was completely over the top. I mean, there's a few moments that I just feel like were, obviously they're meant to be, I think, comical, but at that point when you...
I'm sorry, it was the scene where, again, he was trying to make a point of, and you even brought it up in the film, and I was glad you did, where Margot Robbie goes and tries to fancy herself up for this transition into the new Hollywood, and she breaks all sense of decorum and tries to basically. And I thought this was so laughably, terribly bad in terms of what point you're trying to make, and also.
When she has a geyser, like it looks like The Exorcist, and it's like, well, at least The Exorcist, she's demonically possessed, and it's like it's like I don't know what's going on here. I was just like, why? Like how? No, she didn't. Like you said, she didn't even eat nothing.
It was god awful. It was just I saw the geyser coming out of her mouth. It was such a
ridiculous scene because the whole scene is like predicated on the fact that these upstanding rich white people that are well behaved, well, they're really the oppressive ones, and the fact that she can't just do drugs and be drunk and act like a hoe like she wants to is just that's what's wrong, is that she can't freely do that. And I'm like, well, no. It's like partying's one thing, but yeah, that lifestyle is unhealthy, and the fact
and to act and make it seem like you have to constantly be this rube of again, it's like, okay, yes, there's going to be some people who maybe come from a worse upbringing than those upper crust elitists that they showcase.
Well, yeah, definitely.
And there's fine to showcase, being out of place, but to then embrace it to the extent of being like, well, screw all your rules of society and break all the norms and just be a complete utter asshole is also in no way to act either.
That's a complete.
To embrace that is just, I think,
it's different from being poor and out of place. It's not like, Aladdin where he's a street rat and who's trying to make something better of himself, and it's like, oh, you can't amount to anything because you're homeless. That's completely different than, well, I mean, I just want to do drugs and be promiscuous and do whatever I want. Like, what's wrong with that?
Anymore, Aladdin these days would be the street rat and he'd be embraced for it. Yeah. And then Jasmine would want to become a street rat like him. It's because that's the thing now.
Because
you don't embrace a better life or embrace a better way of life and what you want to achieve or attain. No, it's not about bettering yourself. You're fine the way you are.
Well, what's wrong with getting high and having sex all day?
Well, of course. I mean, that's kind of what the movie proved.
And it's funny because I feel like even Damien
was what the Hollywood of old was.
Yes, and I feel like Damien Chazelle was like, well, that's not the point I'm trying to make. It's like, yeah, but you don't clarify anything else other than old Hollywood was actually much worse, than we're actually much more sophisticated and better learned now. And it's like, I'm not saying that there weren't crazy parties going on in 1920s Hollywood either, not to the extent that he shows in this movie. That's definitely fictional. I mean, yeah, did people do drugs and get high and drunk back then? Yeah, I'm sure they did, just like they do today. Did they walk around? You mentioned that there's like penises drawn on their chest.
Well, I was going to say
midgets with pogos. No, that was funny.
That was hilarious.
That was but still, it's an excessive amount that you're like, no, they didn't go to that extreme.
Well, and even if they went to some of the extremes they showed, there's so many modern adaptations of what we consider to be over the top and again degrading and completely.
Well, some of it's over the top for today, so it's just kind of like it's over the top for the 20s.
Well, absolutely, and it just feels like what I see so much of, and you hit the nail on the head too when we walked out of the theater. I was describing this, and you're like, yeah, it's just revisionist, and that's exactly what Hollywood does now. It's like we're gonna go back to a time of old. Back in the day, and look, nobody's saying that there weren't bad times. Nobody's saying that there weren't orgies back in Roman periods. Yeah. We have traces of history about these things.
People partied just like they did, but
of course, but there's a certain extent. I'm pretty sure that yes, there were Romans who didn't walk around with dicks on their chest. Drawn out like what we
sure
see.
About that?
I'm sure there probably were.
They took that charcoal and have you seen Caligula?
Well, again, you look at the way certain things are portrayed at certain times in history, and while there is a certain amount of what is considered shocking and obscene for that time and day, it's only proven that
the rule.
Exactly. It's not only the exception and the not the rule, but also it proves that. The reason we become more obscene is because we take a little bit of what was considered to be wrong in the days, the past generations,
and we normalize it. Yeah,
and we not only normalize it, we go we do 10 times worse.
Well, that's exactly what's happening now. It's like, look, that's how crazy they were in the 20s, so we're not that bad by comparison. We just, if we normalize, then you move the bar even further because it's like, well. Look how pure they were, but some of the people thought that was okay. Maybe those people were right. No, they weren't right.
And I think ultimately, like you said, there's not necessarily a glorification, but there is no edifying nature in which you walk away from this film of, oh, they learned their lesson. No. You can say, yes, these characters end off with a tragic lifestyle, but there's this
to
kind
an extent, but they try to make you feel sorry for them. Yeah.
Well, and there's this immoral, I feel like, message that Chazelle's throwing in there of, but their sacrifice for our gain as a culture was worth it, because look at what we have, the legacy we have that they left behind.
Except a lot of their sacrifices due to their own terrible decisions, and that's at that point I'm like, I don't feel bad for them.
And even there's a simple scene, and I told you when it popped up in the film, I was like, well, that's actually a scene that describes, if anything, the reality of what Hollywood is and what it truly, it's the backbone of the industry that they always negate and don't show up. It's when Brad Pitt is a washed up actor. He's doing a favor for a friend just to get a little bit of money. He knows it's all BS, and he shows up on set, and of course it's not the lively, adventurous, embarking on a new journey. It's just kind of humdrum. Everybody's treating it like a day job, and they're on set and they're out on location, and everybody's just kind of chit-chatting off by the side, quietly talking. And it's not the roaring 20s and the bombastic orgies that they saw at the beginning of the film. Yeah. It's just this humdrum life now, and he looks at it with disdain and kind of looks over at him, and this is what it's become now. This is what I used to think was, this amazing lifestyle. Yep. And it's a sad reality of what I feel like Chazelle himself may either be discovering about the industry. And it's like, no, that says more about you as a person and what you have characterized as the industry as a whole versus those who actually see new life in it. Yeah. Because any artist who's worth their weight in their salt is going to always be able to reinvent themselves to find something new about what it is they love. Yeah. And anybody who looks at it in that case, and yes, he does treat it as a tragedy from Brad Pitt's character's point of view, but even in that instance, he makes it seem like it's a negative, that this is what film has become. This is the reality, that they're no longer living on the edge of life. There's no newness about it.
Well, that's, the whole movie.
And it's the tragedy of film and what it really has become.
And that's what I felt was twisted about the whole movie, is that, you could say by the end of the film, these characters get what's coming to them because they're not great people. But the whole entire movie is predicated on this idea that, but look at what we lost, which wasn't anything good, apparently, but the movie acts like it was. And this idea that these were tragic people you should feel sorry for, when, no, I don't, because they were terrible people. And the idea that there's somehow, like, we're supposed to feel compassionate about this era that's now gone. I'm like, why? If it was really that, if it's as terrible as you want to make it seem like, why would I care? It's like, I'm glad that the silent film era is over and we moved into talkies and that we could get rid of these terrible people if that's the case. And I don't think that's the intent of the movie, but absolutely, if people were really that bad. I mentioned both in the review and to you in the theater, Boogie Nights does a much better job of showing broken people in a moralless industry, and the fact that it doesn't glorify them and make it seem like, well, you know what, really, these people were just dealt a bad hand, and you should just feel completely sorry for them for their poor decisions.
100%. That's exactly. If Boogie Nights were made today, that's exactly the message.
You should feel sorry for them because they didn't make good decisions in life. It's like, no. I mean,
and inherently, just by virtue of that fact alone, that's why. And it's like, no. There's still, and that is the problem with so much of Hollywood these days in general, but especially this film. You cannot have any kind of moral judgment on the industry you're a part of, on the culture that is at hand right now. You can't have any moral precepts if you don't have a basis of where that morality comes from. And the more moral credibility that our culture erodes and gets rid of, the moral foundations, and I definitely would argue, especially with the foundations that our country was founded on those Judeo-Christian principles, the more you retract from those and take those out of the culture and out of the society, you don't have a basis for morality anymore. And so at what point do you have any kind of judgment on anything when it's all moral relativism? It's only based on, again, so much of what this movie purports to be about, you have to come in with that kind of perspective. If you don't have that very foundation as your jumping off point, then by virtue of the fact alone, your movie's irrelevant. Because you ultimately are coming in with the precept that you as an audience now are viewing it through this landscape and this view. And that is where I ultimately have a fault in this film, because this is something that is not only utter crap today, but is going to be utter crap 50 years from now, because you could watch it and think, what message am I supposed to walk away with now? Where is the moral remedy? There isn't one. And you could sit there and argue, well, a film doesn't necessarily need that. No, it doesn't. But when you set the plot up as if it's going to lead you down that road, which Chazelle definitely does, and there's nothing, again, edifying to fall back on, then you have to walk out of the theater just completely like, okay, and I guess that's...
Yeah,
I guess that's his view of the world.
You walk out and you're like, okay, I don't entirely know what the point of like all of this was, other than I guess Damien Chazelle is just really cynical and crass, and the fact that
and some odd, weird appreciation for film history.
Yeah.
At least it got us to where we are today.
Even I was thinking about this the other day, and granted, I mean, completely different films and premises, but Hollywoodland, when you talk about like the actors whose star is fading and how they deal with that, I thought that movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, I'm in the scene where the little girl's like, oh, that was the best acting I've ever seen, and he gets the tear in his eyes. Like, all of that was handled better than even Brad Pitt's character in Hollywoodland, better than Brad Pitt in this movie, where he's no longer, his star is starting to fade and he's no longer the hot actor anymore. And I'm like, here's two directors with distinctive styles. Quentin Tarantino, who, yes, every film you see of a Quentin Tarantino film is distinctly Tarantino, but at the same time, for the most part, most of them, besides maybe one or two, are also very unique. And that was another problem I had with this, was with all the jazz and the Hollywood, like, there was nothing in this movie other than this bloated 3-hour long that I just was awful to get through.
Yes.
I know we kept looking at it, both of us were like, man, this movie still has 2 hours. Yeah. This movie still has an hour and a half. Yeah. It was awful. But I'm watching this movie and it's like nothing like Whiplash to La La Land to even First Man. Those are all three I felt distinct enough that while they all are definitely, you could tell, made by Chazelle, I'm watching this movie and it's like literally everything from those three movies are in this movie with nothing else unique. The music, the jazz music that 100%. I know he loves, that's a part of all of his music. Nothing was interesting done there. In fact, that whole storyline could have been cut. The only purpose it served was to show the one black man who has integrity.
Yep.
But it didn't really have...
Not going to resort to their ways.
Yeah. And I mean, you still had a little bit of that in the character of Manny, but it was wasted because, again, by his time of his redemption, he'd already, I think...
Well, and again, take those points in essence. The reason those only stand, it's like, I don't know a time in history other than, yes, racism back in the day, but anywhere in modern history where anybody would argue against the credibility and the integrity of that scene and that character. But it's funny because it's like that's one of the only characters in the film that has any redeeming qualities. Yeah. And part of that is like, well, duh, because we live in the world where we live now, where we heighten those storylines and we beef them up to the point of where they're at the forefront and they take precedent over any of the other characters. Because you pretty much write off any of the other characters', qualities by virtue of the fact that they make the terrible decisions they do. And it's like, okay, so why should I even care about them? Mm-hmm. Why? Why couldn't you take the same focus you had for that one black character and add it to the rest of them to be fully developed? Oh, well, because I guess it doesn't matter.
Give him much character development until until
the
one
pivotal point. Yeah.
And even then, that's okay. So then he gets about 30 minutes of development leading up until that point, and then he disappears again until the end of the movie. So I'm just kind of like,
just to say, oh, I didn't take their
It was just a lot crammed into the film. Own path. It wasn't cohesive. You had all these characters that you didn't need to have. It was just a bloated, pretentious mess. I said when we were leaving the theater, it's like he Cronenberg'd it. It's just it's one of those things where I feel like Chazelle thought that because of all of the critic praise he's gotten, and because they seem to have let him do whatever he wanted with this movie, it was almost like this moment where he was like, oh, everything I have to say is so brilliant, and audience is going to see it. And it's like, well, if they don't like it, I knew I was going to make some people mad because, it is crass and it has an important message to say that's going to ruffle feathers. It's like, no, it has no important message. Whatever message you think was important got lost. And it's definitely...
Well, you have to have moral decency. And again, you have to... You can't just expect your audience to come in with a certain moral code, abandon that entirely within your characters and the story you build, and then expect them to fill in the gaps without leading them down that road throughout the rest of your film.
Because they think whatever ingenious point they have to make, whether it's the stupid chairs,
it rises above
they
that.
think that it's like, well, that in and of itself is what makes it so brilliant. It's like, no, sorry.
No.
If you make a crap film, it doesn't matter how good the theme is, and this one didn't even have a good theme.
No. And even then, I it's like you said in the review, it's like, who is this movie made for? I really have no clue.
Yeah.
And you can tell by critics alike, they agree. It's like, it's just bloated, nauseating. It's a trudge to get through. There's nothing by the end of it that you're just like, wow, impressive and brilliant and amazing.
It's funny because before it came out, a lot of people were, like hyping up, is this going to be another Oscar contender? And it's one now that
I think this is for? You know who I think that?
Oh, I think it's for. He made it for the Oscar crowd and for the.
Oh no! That, but no doubt, because who doesn't release
and
a film?
And they're not impressed, but still.
But no, I think this is truly for, and I think back to when we were in high school, and of course we were, young up and coming filmmakers and wanting to embark on this journey of not only learning the craft, but really we loved and picked apart all the Oscar noms every year and tried to watch the Best Picture winners. And, oh, yeah, they deserve to be nominated. That's a classic. That's amazing. Yeah. And I honestly believe this is for those who are young entrepreneurial filmmakers who don't watch a lot of films, watch just enough to have a decent taste in certain movies, and then they watch this and they think, wow, I've never seen anything like this before. And it's like, yeah, but you just haven't actually watched enough films.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's probably enough of Babble On.
Yeah, we probably gave it more than... Well, we didn't talk quite enough, 3 hours long worth. We could have. We could have kept going 3 hours worth, but then people would have felt this way about the show that they did about the movie.
But, hey. And, sometimes everybody hits a clunker. Maybe Damien Chazelle pops back with a movie just as good as Whiplash or La La Land. But right now, I'm just like...
I have a feeling they're going to be a lot more stringent on his next film, though. Just because of two major big blockbuster
they're going to definitely
flops.
be like, let's not just give you free reign anymore. And honestly, maybe that's for the best.
Yeah.
I think sometimes having too much free reign can be a problem because then you think everything you do is ingenious.
And I was gonna say, I think after a while, when you're around too many yes men and you're around too many people that bloat your ego, and you have been given this kind of young aura. He's a young director. He's got this aura about himself of, again, too big to fail.
Yeah.
And yet I think he's now been proven with his last two big releases. And again, as far as filmmaking quality, certain parts, there were about first 45 minutes of the movie, we were laughing, we were cutting up with some of the stuff he had in there. It's not completely dismal and like...
It gets old quick.
Yes.
It's for 3 hours worth, it's like, no.
Yeah, not worth it. All righty, guys, let's move on to our headlines for this week. I am at 900 calories.
I haven't done that one in a while.
It's a good one.
I was not entertained after Babble On, that's for sure.
That's an oldie but a goodie. Too true.
Well, they're talking about the sequel here recently.
What?
To Gladiator.
Oh, Gladiator,
they
that's
hired,
true.
I forget that. I don't know him. To be the new main character for Gladiator 2.
I forget his name, too.
Yeah.
Crap.
I don't care because I think the idea of a Gladiator 2 is stupid, but...
Agreed.
But,
well, and Sean would probably disagree because he agreed that Passion 2 was stupid. So, Sean, I'm calling you out. Calling you out on the show you're not a part of.
Yeah, when you put it that way, it's not... Here's the thing. It's not that I don't think... Top Gun 2 could have been terrible. Gladiator 2 could come out and prove me wrong. I don't think Gladiator needs a sequel, but we'll see. It's just one of those things that sometimes I think it is best to leave things alone.
Well, and again, you're right. It could blow me away, but the other doubt I have...
You know why Passion can have a sequel? Because Jesus came back. He actually lived again.
It's true.
Russell Crowe's character is dead. He's not coming back.
Right.
The whole point of this movie is a completely different character, and at that point, I'm just like...
Unless it's based on where number one ends, which is Marcus Aurelius' dream was that Rome would exist again, and Gladiator dies for that dream. It could be, I don't know. We'll see. It could be the uprising of Caesar.
I think this character is supposed to be Joaquin Phoenix's son is the main character in this one, so is what I was reading. I mean, it's an interesting idea. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean,
well, and again, I
still
don't
trust
Ridley
Ridley Scott.
I was gonna say I don't have faith in Ridley Scott anymore, and I just don't have faith in the woke culture.
Yeah.
The woke culture of rewriting even Roman history, which we know is just 2,000 years of all sorts.
Yeah,
of
they had all
unwoke.
kinds of debauchery. So,
Exactly.
I mean,
so I hate it because I just don't have any faith
We'll
right
see.
now that people can take it.
what's our first headline?
Yeah, let's talk about it. Let's talk about what we actually brought up. You brought it up on a couple weeks ago.
Well,
the show.
I had wondered what the heck happened after the whole like they had this whole sign up for betas and stuff, and then it disappeared forever.
But
And
MoviePass,
even people that signed up never heard anything.
I kind of want to read the article.
Yeah,
I'm gonna try to pull it up here.
I got it here.
Oh, you do have it?
Yeah.
It's a short article.
I can. Well, here, let me.
Because
if half of it would load. There we go.
does it have reader view? Is it in Safari?
Yeah,
See
let
if
me
it has
do
reader view.
reader view.
That I always have to do
Show
that because
reader.
the freaking
yeah,
ads are terrible.
It is. It's awful.
But it's
There
actually
we
it's
go.
not that long an article, and it explains Stacey
Yeah,
Spikes
reader view makes things so much better. Here
so
we
much
go.
better. Go ahead.
But anyways, yeah, MoviePass Inc. announced it has raised its seed financing led by America Brands, a Hong Kong, which I think it's not America, Animoca. Sorry, I was like, wait a minute, America Brands, Hong Kong. Yeah, misread that. Let me start over. Anyways, MoviePass announced it has raised its seed financing led by Animoca Brands, a Hong Kong-based game software, blockchain, and venture capital company. Yeah. The seed round also includes participation from Claritas Capital, Emerald Plus, Gangles, Harlem Capital, PKO VC, and Sandhill Angels. As part of the deal, Animoca Brands executive chairman and co-founder, I'm going to say that's Yat Su,
Yeah,
I
that
could be
works.
wrong, will join the board of MoviePass, which is a subscription movie-going service. MoviePass declined to state how much money it had raised as part of the seed financing round. MoviePass co-founder Stacey Spikes, who is a man, who bought back the company in late... It doesn't say that. I had to throw that in.
I know it.
Yeah, who bought back the company in late 2021, says he plans to do another round of financing at the end of 2023 or in 2024. By that point, he expects the theatrical box office will have rebounded from the pandemic because it hasn't already.
Right.
At this point, movie theaters are still struggling to fill seats post-COVID, and studios have released fewer films.
Because the highest grossing film possibly ever will have released this past December
Yeah.
with Avatar.
Yeah.
It's still on the up and up.
Well, and look at Top Gun.
And Top
Look
Gun
at
Maverick.
Spider-Man almost broke $2
Come
billion.
on.
I mean...
Again, continue.
Yeah, the markets are crazy, and we didn't want to go out there and get crushed, says Spikes.
Nah, I believe that.
Yeah, absolutely. We got what we needed. I would rather do a big raise in the 2023 window after a much better slate of content.
So we got money, we reached our
Yeah.
goal, but not enough.
It's like we don't have enough, and we don't know about which is crazy because we just talked about how this year actually has a lot of major releases.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's
continue, yeah.
been a chaotic few years for MoviePass, you don't say, which experienced explosive growth after introducing a $9.95 monthly membership plan in 2017, only to go bankrupt in 2020. We were there. Yeah.
Through all of it.
The company was reacquired by Spikes roughly a year later. Spikes was let go shortly after selling a controlling stake in the company to Helios and Matheson, which engineered the unfeasible pricing. Yeah, it was all their fault. Spikes announced that he would relaunch the service in 2022. He said he did not consider changing the name of the company, despite the drubbing it received online when MoviePass suffered several outages as its financial issues grew more severe. It was more than just the outages. I mean, they were screwing over people left and right.
It was close to being criminal if they hadn't gone bankrupt.
Why start over with a different name, Spike says. When we relaunched, we saw a strong response from opening the waiting list. They mentioned it. It made us realize the brand wasn't tainted.
Oh, it's tainted.
And here's my problem.
People signed up because they were intrigued.
Yes.
And two,
But
I do agree with them to not change the name simply because that's where you have so much press built up around it. Is it bad press? Absolutely. But
if he
again,
could actually turn it around,
no press is bad press.
Yeah. If he actually turned the company around and it ends up becoming a good product, then yes, keeping the name would be a benefit because it's like, look what he did with it. It would be. But here's my problem. One of the things customers hated about old MoviePass was the lack of communication when people were trying to cancel and kept getting charged, or when people like I didn't receive my card for like almost 6 months and I had to keep messaging them on Twitter and Facebook and nobody would answer me, and finally they shipped me a new card. The lack of communication was a huge problem.
Yep.
And you just mentioned when we did signups back in September and October, and nobody's heard anything else since till now. That's still a lack of communication. And I know you're trying to restart everything and that takes time, but at least come out and say it's going to take time. These signups were just, to be first notified, but it's still going to be 2 years. It's like, so why'd you have signups 2 years before you're going to launch?
Right. Well, because they wanted to show and generate interest.
Yes.
But even then, I also am kind of shaken, and I did not like the fact that a majority of the stakeholders, at least in the beginning, shareholders, I should say, are going to be these overseas companies in China. And it's like, no, I don't trust any of the Chinese market. I don't trust these people funding this. Plus, when you look at some of the technologies, and even what he says at the end of the... maybe I should let you go ahead and finish. Go ahead,
because I have some concerns about this as well. MoviePass will also collaborate with theater exhibitors and studios to offer variable ticket pricing to movie fans, which means the cost will rise or fall depending on the popularity or demand of a particular title. The MoviePass beta version is now live in 9 U.S. markets, including Atlanta, Chicago, Dallas, Houston, Indianapolis, Kansas City, Oklahoma City, and Tampa Bay. The company currently has 10 employees.
Okay, that's fine. That's transparent.
The company has developed strategic partnerships with more than 25 cinema chains, including B&B Theaters, Cinepolis Luxury Cinemas, and Landmark Theaters. These partnerships will allow moviegoers to buy tickets, select seats, and receive promotional offers directly via the MoviePass app.
Again, not surprising. Was expecting at least one big player there, but I understand it's tainted to the degree that they have to start small and grow again. That's fine.
MoviePass has a strong vision for technology in the field of entertainment, and our investment demonstrates our commitment to maximizing the value that MoviePass can deliver across the film industry, said Sue in a statement. With its initiatives to increase traffic to theaters, engage audiences with enhanced cinematic experiences, connect studios and their franchise characters to movie fans, and make financing more accessible to aspiring filmmakers, we believe that MoviePass will help define the future of cinema.
Yeah, that's the last part that I'm a little concerned with. Here's the thing. I get trying to think of new business ventures other than just one specific. I mean, this is it, the key to any business these days. You have to be multifaceted. I mean,
look at that Netflix's venture, but Netflix didn't start out venturing into all kinds of things.
Exactly. Just like we were criticizing AMC last year for buying a gold mine.
Yeah, which is still stupid.
And they can't freaking serve buttered popcorn at their theaters now, and the freaking bathroom floors are sticky and out of order,
and their seats are falling apart. The back of my seat just fell right off.
Gosh, we need to do a special on AMC and do a Red Moon Investigates.
Here's the thing. I mean, it wouldn't have saved Babble On. It was a crap movie, but it was so annoying to see these huge jazz bands and there's no bass whatsoever.
None. It was just all center speaker, complete treble, no bass. It was awful. But no, I understand, and again, this kind of goes back to my trust, though, of where it's headed with the organizations they receive funding from. I still don't know the quality or the details of the service that they're going to potentially provide. When they're talking about video, like VR ventures and new world building of theaters, when they're talking about blockchain technology, I'm like, these are all things that I think the movie industry could somewhat dabble in, or maybe we could see a surge in to some degree, but I need details.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's got these partners,
these unknown partners in China. I mean, they're not unknown, but they're
obviously, their interests are going to be very key to that market more so than the American market. And he may say, well, hey, we're going to go wherever the money is and where you can get funding. Okay, fine, so be it. But as a original partaker and customer of MoviePass, this just doesn't seem like it's... I mean, truthfully, I thought about it as I was reading this article. I was hopeful to return to at least something where it would give us the buying power and the option. We've trash AMC constantly on this program, but yet we still subscribe to Stubbs A-List because for the value of the dollar in terms of how many movies you can see per month, there's bar none. There's no competition.
It does make it a lot easiher and cheaper for us to see all the movies reviewed
as often as we go.
It just really stinks that the theaters are so they're so poorly maintained.
Oh yeah,
and falling apart. And there's other theaters in our area that are better, but it costs.
We just
a
don't.
lot
We
more.
don't have the opportunity to go to them because as often as we go, it would cost us an arm
yeah,
and a leg.
something like MoviePass, if well done, would give us an opportunity to be able to go anywhere.
Even if it was, a little bit more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it was, I'd say even $15 more than what we pay now, which is $20.
Yeah.
I would pay $35
Yeah.
if I could go see even one movie every single week at any theater chain. I'd be okay with that. I'd still pay that price because to me, that's going to be by the time I see the third movie,
It's already paid for itself.
It's paid for itself at the current ticket prices. The biggest problem.
Heck, I mean, almost $2 now. So
Yeah,
if you
that's
go
true.
to some movie theaters are almost like $16 a ticket.
Well, and especially if you include the premium formats, which is another thing we do give AMC a plus for, when it's worth the amount of money to go see an IMAX
That's the
movie.
only theater that they do maintain. They don't clean it. It's still got sticky floors, but at least the sound and picture work.
Right, and I think part of that is because they legally are
I think they
obligated,
have to, yeah.
probably licensing out the IMAX technology.
Yes.
They have to keep it up to a certain quality, because again, it would give IMAX a bad name.
Yep.
But AMC definitely has a bad name just by their own operation standards. They're just a terrible theater. At least the Louisville location is.
It's like AMC may be fantastic everywhere else, but they're not doing anything for this theater. And it's at a point now where I'm like, look, if you don't have enough money to fix the theater, then sell the dang thing to Cinemark or somebody else because somebody needs to do something to it.
And I just find it a little suspect, again, like you said, the lack of communication. And again, I get it. He's still finding funding. He's still trying to go out
They
and
do mention there's a beta in 10 cities, but again, they open up this huge waiting list and everything for the beta, but they aren't clear on, they didn't give you really any details of what the beta's for or what you're getting. They definitely, I don't remember reading anything about which cities were getting and which weren't. It's like if they were more open about, well, these cities will start the beta for this amount of time.
Yep.
And, I mean, it would have saved people like us from signing up to something that we had no chance of being a part of anyway.
Well, and drum up the excitement for the people who have actually signed up to be emailed on details. Give us a little bit of what to look forward to.
Now
Tell
we're
us what's
hearing
going
that it
on at
won't
the beta
launch
sites.
until, after this year, maybe after 2024.
Well, and another late 2023 funding goal.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, so you reached your 2022 goal, but they still got another year to reach one more.
Yeah.
And with no idea of what services to come.
Yeah.
What
We don't
business
know.
they're actually
They're talking
in.
about different tiers. They're talking about fluctuating prices based on the popularity of movies. It's like, we don't know what your model's going to be at all. And at this point, it sounds like it may not be worth it. I mean,
I don't think so. I really, well, I can't say that. I'm hopeful, and I do want MoviePass to return strong, and I do think it's funny that he sold his share. I think part of it was kind of, the reason that he sold them.
I do think he was smart
be-
enough to know that the new business model was unsustainable.
Exactly.
I didn't
And
think
then
that.
I
yeah.
understand why they let him go, because he was like, well, I'm selling all my shares to get out of here before it tanks.
Yeah.
And I totally understand that. He saw it was headed in that direction. He didn't think it was sustainable and was like, I'm getting off the Titanic before it sinks.
Yeah.
I get that. I just think it is for him to come in and be like, well, I'm going to be the hero that saves the day and rights the ship, rewrites the course and say, hey, we're taking a different path. We're going to be Lazarus here and raise up from the dead. I need a little bit more interest, or at least, transparency going forward to still make me interested.
I think he's because of the fact that he wasn't the one involved with all of the bad things that happened with MoviePass. He kind of is taking it for granted that people could just kind of trust him. But it's like, no, I understand maybe it wasn't your decisions that led to what happened with MoviePass, but the name still has a bad taste in people's mouths. People don't trust MoviePass. They don't know you, so you still have to be transparent, even if it wasn't you who sank the ship to begin with.
Agreed. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. We're going to have another year without MoviePass. Probably another year without any details.
Yeah.
We'll find out if they reach their funding goal, but I'm a little bit still questionable, not only about the details, but mainly about the foreign partners that are involved in funding this adventure. We'll see.
Yeah.
Let's move into now our second headline.
Yeah, I like this one.
Which it's kind of funny talking about this woke culture every day and all of its new advances.
I think this headline and the third one kind of, because they're both award shows.
Yep.
So, granted, this isn't a film award show, but I think that does still bear discussing the was a British
the Brit Awards.
It's for music, I believe, but they did a genderless awards. They got rid of best female, best male artist.
Just best artist.
It's just best artist, Which we've joked about the Oscars doing that. It's like, well, if we're going to be really fair, he's like, you can't have sex in there. But what happened was that only males were nominated.
Yep.
So now they're sexist for not nominating any women.
And then their statement on this was to come out and say, well, Adele won last year, so it just apparently there weren't many good female artists
women just sucked this year.
And that literally was one of their statements.
That's the thing about award show. If it's not based on merit, then it falls apart. Because you could say if you stick by merit only, then yeah, you're going to say the best were nominated. But it is kind of funny that it's like you get rid of gender entirely, and now you're saying that, well, these were the best 5 performers. It's not our fault it was all men.
Well, and here's the thing. I could almost somewhat agree with that. But then in these instances, see, that's the problem.
It's funny to watch it blow up in their face.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And what I love is when they get eaten alive by the very critics who wanted to usher this kind of, stupid woke agenda in anyway. Because everybody who's criticizing it are very much the ones who were probably parading around and cheering this on when it happened.
Oh, yeah.
And even Adele, when she got up there to accept her speech last year, in her acceptance speech, she specifically spoke on this and said, I just want to say, I understand why we're moving this forward and, making this category, genderless, but I really do want to point out it's great to win this as a female. And I was like, and that goes to the point of why they're doing this. They don't want it to be a year like this. You want to change the rules, but always sway it to where it only falls in one direction. See, the only way this would have been acceptable is if there were only 2 male artists, but at least 3 female. Always outweighing the possibility of this ever happening.
And then it would have been a brilliant move.
Right.
Absolutely. Or,
but like you said,
had more, a little bit, yeah.
Even if it rests on meritocracy, they're going to argue that it doesn't.
Yeah.
Because 5 male artists are
how
what's
could that
nominated.
be possible?
Exactly. You can't tell me that there wasn't one female artist that rose to the occasion and should be nominated over them.
Apparently not. They didn't get nominated. I mean, what are you going to say?
Based on their own rules.
Men are better. I don't know.
So then what you have is you have not only the gender category changing or the category becoming genderless, you then have rules in state placed in
well, yeah,
state.
now because it's like, well, now because then you have to put in like all these diversity rules like that we've seen Amazon and the Oscars take. It's like, well, to prevent this from happening, we're going to stay genderless, but now at least this many has to be nominated.
We have to ensure diversity sees its way through.
And then at that point, it's not based on merit. It's just completely you just trying to pander. And that's why
everybody gets
no
a
one
trophy.
cares about. Yes,
and at the end of the day, everybody's getting a participation trophy.
And that's why
audiences
don't care about award shows anymore. That's why the Golden Globes had the worst ratings they've had in what did it say? I think
since the last year it ran, which was 2021.
Well, yeah, it had worse than that. But I was talking about. It's not. I think it's only their second worst show ever. But the worst show I think was during the writer's strike. That's what it was. The lowest ratings the Golden Globes ever had was during the writer's strike, but this is the second lowest they've ever had, and it's abysmal. I mean, it is.
Well, it is because even our lower third says it's like the Globe report. The Globes reported they only had 3 viewers.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even us. We were doing the show, so it wasn't us here on the Red Moon Podcast.
We didn't watch, so
we didn't watch it. So I don't know who the 3 viewers were.
I just think it's just sad that what was it 26% from last NBC show in 2021. I'm like
26% drop.
Yeah, they had a 1.1 rating with 6.3 million viewers. I mean, obviously the joke was the 3, but still the actual view. Which when you think about it, 6 million viewers is terrible. I'm sorry. Worldwide. Yeah.
That's awful. That's abysmal.
Yeah.
In their key demo, I guess they would argue 18 to 44 or 45 or whatever. But I mean, the fact of the matter is yes, you're right. No, not only and it goes deeper than the meritocracy issue, and they deserve to be. Absolutely deserve to be.
Well, it's fine because that was another.
Slowly but surely, the award shows need to die, and simply based on the fact of not only is it a meritocracy issue, but it is a elitist competition of people who get up there. The best Golden Globes that any one of us commoners would ever, us serfs down here in the cheap seats would ever argue would be the one with Ricky Gervais telling everybody off. Yep. Because again, so much of them have this air about themselves that they want to preach to us about how to live our lives and how we should bend to their will and their objectives of what they claim to be important issues and causes. And people are just tired of getting preached at by a bunch of moralists, A-lister assholes. I don't give a damn about what they think.
The Golden Globes also, they took a year off because of actually the NBC booted them because their ratings were so bad, and they used diversity as the excuse to do it. But they took a year off to fix the diversity issues and came back to even lower ratings. So again, no average viewer at home gave a crap about your diversity issues. Just like nobody cares about having male and female categories because that makes sense.
Right.
I mean, it's just stupid. All of it, and it'll be interesting to see how the Oscars go this year. Because again, people already joke. It's like, well, the only movies that ever get nominated are the ones nobody sees. And it has been true the last decade or two.
Oh, absolutely. They have been constantly nominating films that are not memorable, that ultimately we, year on a year basis, forget about.
I'd say that Babble On won't get a nom because it doesn't deserve one, but at this point, who knows anymore?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because hilarious that back in the day, the reason they expanded it from 5 to 10 to a possible of 10 was because The Dark Knight didn't get nominated the one year, even though it got nominated.
That's why
for
I know
8 awards.
Top Gun will get nominated at least because, we could nominate 10.
But that's what's so interesting. Top Gun will also, maybe along with Avatar,
I think they'll both get a nom.
those will be the only two in the category that'll probably be blockbusters.
They'll be blockbusters
that people
have seen.
actually saw.
And they won't be serious contenders. They'll just be like, well, we have 10. We'll throw them in there because otherwise we can't ignore 2 of the biggest films of the year.
And that's the thing. You could almost argue on that basis alone that it was stupid for them to have only opened the category to possibility of 10 being nominated
because
simply by virtue of the fact that the last decade alone has proven we didn't need 10 Best Picture noms.
Literally, they throw them in there to appease
They're forgetful.
They appease audience. Like, we'll throw these because we know audiences will wonder why these movies aren't nominated, but we're not going to seriously consider them.
Right. And I mean, it's just you go back to the list and you could honestly tell me a bunch of films that were nominated and hardly any of them I remember. I remember what year they came out. I remember them even being nominated, or I have to think back. I mean, it's almost like the field of 10 is too many because there's not been that many
because most of them aren't
to be
memorable.
Nominated.
You only have 4 or 5 that are memorable, and it's funny because it's like that's what you used to get nominated was 5.
And I think that just the obvious, ridiculous nature of how many award shows there are. I mean, yes, I always kind of understood it as it's the EGOT, the Emmys, an Oscar, Grammys, and Tonys.
Those were the most prestigious.
Those were the most prestigious in those fields,
and
it made sense. But now you got People's Choice Awards, you got the freaking country, awards, the CMAs. You've got all these different award shows. The MTV Movie Awards, I think, still happen.
They still happen.
It's insane.
Nickelodeon still does the Kids' Choice. I get that for them, but still.
But the thing is it's so bloated. Everybody wants to try to maintain this relevance when it used to be that the reason you tuned in to any one of those lesser known ones was to be like, what crazy insane celebrity is going to show up and do something wacky?
Yeah.
But even now it's like the prestige of all these other ones is just completely lost simply because there is no prestige in Hollywood. The gig is up. We don't care about your lifestyle. We don't care about what nonsense you're preaching at us and not living by. We don't care. Shut up. Dance, monkey, dance. That's what we care about. If you want to get on Twitter, you want to get on social media and spout all your causes and nonsense for the people who actually do give a damn about you because they think the world of you, fine, do it. But to the others out here, the reason we've had to tune out and turn it off is because we don't give a damn. And that should tell you more than your ridiculous followers that will just eat up every word out of your mouth, because at the end of the day, yeah, of course you're going to have those. There's always crazy people to follow other crazies. But the normal people out here in the real world making it, living it day to day, we don't give a damn about what you have to say. So like Ricky Gervais said, get up there, thank your agents, thank your publicists, thank the people who made the film, be a little humble and say, oh, wow, I can't believe I won this. I'm so grateful. Bye. That's it.
I agree.
Get off the stage.
I think we're done there.
Yeah,
I do want to. We don't have to get into it long, but I do just because I think it's cool. Mention the final headline.
Yeah, go ahead.
Michael Giacchino is he did. It's not his directorial debut per se. He did do the Halloween special for Marvel and Disney Plus, Werewolf by Night, which was a really fun play on 1950s style horror. But Michael Giacchino is now going to direct his first feature-length film, which is going to be a remake of Film, the 1950s monster movie. And I think that's really cool because he's a fantastic composer. can't think of anything he's done that I just like, I didn't like that music. I think Michael Giacchino is very talented as far as composing music, and it's interesting to see him stepping to the role as a director.
If there's anything, as much as we just kind of crapped all over the award shows and how irrelevant they've become, if there's one thing that I see a bright light on in terms of just the industry as a whole, whether it's filmmaking or music or even, variety numbers, and it's like you see a breath of, I think, just talent and people who do have genuine talent in the arts.
There are still some people that do it because they love the craft, and
Absolutely.
it's not because they're trying to shoehorn in.
Well, and it's cool to see that we now have at least, that's one bright spot of the industry I like, which is we have these people who are not pigeonholed into, well, you only do this, you only do that. No, if you have the talent and the vision to move outside of your area of expertise,
well, we see
why
it
not
more
give them a
often
chance?
now. I mean, I think starting with, writing and directing, that's always been a little bit more common, but now you start to see actors that step into the role of director.
No doubt.
Now with Michael Giacchino, it's a composer who's stepping into the role of director. I've seen plenty of special effects artists. Greg Nicotero, who did a lot of with George A. Romero, the Walking Night of the Living Dead movies. Amongst other things, he's a fantastic
who was the one that just
prosthetics.
did Mad God? That did the
I don't. I don't remember his name.
Going from just doing the effects to doing a full
but I think
movie.
Greg Nicotero, who does makeup and effects, he had directed some of the best episodes of Walking Dead when it was still good were directed by Greg Nicotero. I think he's very talented. So it's fun when you do see people who step outside of one role and are able to, because they know the craft well enough. And I am really interested to see what Michael Giacchino delivers, because just seeing him already do something that was set in the 1950s era horror, it'll be interesting to see him get a crack at a feature length
I'm
film.
gonna try my hand at it just because I could hear some people being pissed.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna say Michael Giacchino.
I don't know. I'm pronouncing it in the Americanized way.
Exactly, Giacchino.
But I'm sure it is There's other,
Michael Giacchino.
It's Denis
Villeneuve,
but it's actually Denis Villeneuve. That's it. We butchered his name for a long time.
Screw him. He's Denny.
Gal Gadot.
Hey, Denny.
Gal Gadot.
I did not hit her. I did not. Oh, hi, Mark.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Denny.
But we can move on to our unique segment now.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
Right, let's roll that multimedia open.
Multimedia.
Multimedia.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Had to.
Brandon switched it up on me a little bit. That's okay. I like the topic.
The reason why I went with this topic is because I've been very frustrated, and I was on Mac Rumors. Apple announced some new MacBook updates and whatnot. We're not talking about that. We've done enough Apple updates. But there was apparently a bunch of people on Twitter rallying behind, like, has anybody updated to iOS 16.2 when it dropped in December and it's just really buggy? And I am 100% on board that train of being pissed at Apple. So part of this is to air my frustration with them and also to ask the question, the multimedia segment question of the night: should updates come sooner? Should they
then someone
come
argues,
sooner?
it's like, well, can they? Because somebody will be like, well, maybe they release them as soon as they can. And it's like...
I call BS on that. And the reason I say that is because if there's a security bug that is a critical error,
you fix that right away.
They immediately fix it, push it out the next day. And it becomes like 16.2.1. And if they didn't have a security bug, then if it's a feature update, they just wait till the next major update.
Yeah.
And my problem with that is that you have so many people who are eager, and not only eager, and this is the funny thing about this particular update. It's not just with older iPhones.
No.
Because 16.2 is available on iPhone 8.
Yeah.
All the way up through the latest 14. This is across the board causing problems for all sorts of iOS devices. And I'm particularly calling them out, and I'll call out any other manufacturer that does the same.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I mean, I have to I'll give praise to one company that I know of. And they're stubborn as hell, and they still irritate me, and they're not as, I think, they're not as strategic, nor some of the quality of life updates are, I think, come a little later than they should. But they're still very stable, and that's Sony.
Yeah.
Anytime I have a PlayStation update or a Sony camera update, anytime I've seen Sony update, a TV, most of the releases they have, they don't break anything. They only enhance or they fix the very problems they're going to. And I get software's very tricky, especially on a scale like Apple's. But I know Sony also plays in the competitive marketplace.
They don't hold all the patches to one big release like Apple does. And I
right,
get that.
Exactly.
It's like, look, here's a problem. We'll release it as a small patch, and then when the next problem comes out, we'll release that as especially because with which Apple has the same setting where it should auto update. It doesn't always work. It definitely does for my PlayStation. I've never had an issue with it auto updating.
Same.
But yeah, when you have something like an auto update, then why not just push out the update? Because if it works and the person's device updates overnight like it should, and it's just a small update, it won't take it much time to do. But yeah, I agree. The idea of, well, if it's not completely broken, then we'll just hold everything together until we have one massive update with all these patch fixes. And it's like, okay, at that point, I don't want 5 or 6 things to go wrong before you fix it all at once.
And on the opposite end of that, it's like, yeah, I don't want an update every day where I'm just like, gosh, I agree. But it's like, if you realize that there's a big issue and that there's stability problems with a certain update, you don't wait until or the other thing too is just Apple is notorious for being dead silent about any major release, whether it's obviously hardware releases.
Yeah, there is such a thing as being too secretive.
Yes, and they're not helpful in that regard. Yeah. Whereas at least you thought, they're being secretive for a new hardware release because it's going to be the next big thing.
Yeah, if it's
exciting.
a big reveal, that's one thing. Patch updates.
But if it's a damn patch to a piece of software that you know is buggy and you're not even communicating with people via Twitter or via many
MoviePass.
Apple fans.
See what happens when you're not transparent?
That's true.
Heck, even Marvel now, it's like, look, we get the whole we're being secretive to build hype, but at this point there is no hype. You need to be more transparent.
Yes. Or and then there's the lack of it's not transparency, but the follow through.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen Feige come out and announce, and the next movie you're going to find out. It's going to be the next big reveal, and you get done with it, and it's like, no, I'm still waiting. Oh well, the next one, don't worry, you're gonna see how this universe builds into what we're building toward. No, we didn't. We're still waiting.
Yeah.
So, and my problem with Apple extends from, you have so many people who do follow you, who followed you since the love and infatuation of Steve Jobs' days, I being one of them, who know who some of your senior vice presidents are. I don't know any other company that people know more than just the CEO.
Yeah.
I don't know who Sony's senior vice presidents are. I may know some of the PlayStation's heads, but only because of the gaming.
Yeah.
But hell, I mean, it's like nobody knows who freaking Eddie Q is at another company. Who, now I'm on the spot and I'm forgetting their names.
That's because they're not important.
No, damn it, the guy with he always does the funny reveals during the. I'm gonna have to look him up now because I'm messing his name and I'm screwing up my own point.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'll remember it here in a sec. But it's like I know at least 3 or 4 layers deep of some of these senior vice presidents at Apple because I follow them. Phil Schiller is one.
Yeah.
Damn it, he's the one that comes up with all the OS names, the Mac OS lead.
I don't know any of these people, so.
Oh well, all right. Sorry, I follow it more than
you.
I
know Tim Cook, and that's it. When they come out on, I mean, I reckon like some of them when they come out, because that is one thing Apple does when they do keynotes is they'll bring out other people. It's not always just, even when Steve Jobs was there, he would bring out Johnny Ives or
Johnny Ives. There you go.
I actually know more of the old school Apple people than the current Apple people because
most of those are still
they're still there for the
Eddie
most part.
Q and Phil Schiller
I do know
are definitely
Eddie Q.
old school.
But Steve Wozniak, the Woz. It's just one of those things where, because Apple built that community where people do recognize more of their board members than most companies. Yeah, okay, look at Disney. Everybody knows Bob Iger. Nobody knows anyone under Bob Iger.
Right, exactly.
A few, I mean, like the heads of
and
Pixar
Kevin Feige,
or the heads of those studios. It wasn't John Lasseter, but now it's Pete Docter, which I had high hopes for. But
Craig Federighi, that's who I was thinking of.
Federighi.
He does all the weird, funny names. But the
funny names guy.
He is. But he makes, again, he kind of reminds you of some of the charm that I think existed within Apple.
Yeah.
And I still think of that funny line
Tim
that
Cook killed it.
well, I mean, a lot of people go back to that meme and jokingly of when they released the trash can Mac Pro, and Phil Schiller came out and very, with a lot of hubris was like, can't innovate my ass, call out all those naysayers. And it's funny because it's like, well, you did away with it.
Yeah.
And it took you so long to do away with that design to come out with the current one. And even your current line of devices are just iterations on what you came out with before. There's not innovation.
No.
I'm sorry. Small incremental updates are not innovating. And that's fine. Freaking be honest with it. But it really is irritating, especially when that comes in the forefront of software, and the software not only doesn't get better, but it continues to get worse and buggier, or you don't meet promises of when certain software updates are going to release, or certain iOS features are going to release with a given update, like the Freeform app. It's like, oh, they brought that out as a big new innovation with their last iOS update. Oh, go ahead.
Isn't that funny? I find it funny to me that was like whenever all the naysayers and people who hated Steve Jobs was just like, oh, he's not anybody special. He didn't make the iPhone. He didn't design this or that. He just stole ideas, or he just. But here's the thing: look at what Apple's done since Steve Jobs has been gone. They have not innovated because he was a visionary. It's like, no, maybe he didn't know how to make the iPhone himself. Maybe he didn't know how to design the iPad, but he could see the technology and have the ideas and realize this is innovative. If we could figure out how to do this, if I hire the right people who can put it together, without that vision, there wouldn't have been the innovation of an iPhone.
Right.
Because nobody had ever seen anything like an iPhone.
Well, I was going to say, and there's a reason why it's constantly gone back to as the greatest possible
and
invention
you look at
in the 21st
Apple now, and
century.
it's like they don't innovate. They
You've had the Apple Watch under Tim Cook's launch.
Yeah.
And even then,
well,
it's
now
like
we have the,
it's an
the
incremental
military,
extension.
What's the
Ultra?
Yeah, the Ultra.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not innovative. It does
but again, it's an iteration.
Exactly.
And even the Apple Watch is an extension of what you already have in your smart devices, and yet you already have other competitors in that space. It's like, yeah, everybody's talking about this next augmented reality headset, or the Apple Car with Project Titan still long, possibly in
We've been
development.
talking about Apple cars and an Apple television for
over
many
a decade.
since Steve Jobs was alive.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, but again, so many of these categories are, if anything, evolutions of what we had seen before.
Well, if they ever made a television, it would just be the Apple TV with a screen.
Well, and people will point back to and say, well, but the original, even the iPod, wasn't the first MP3 player. I'm like, no, you're right. And they would even say as much.
The first good one.
Exactly. And I have no problem with Apple staking that claim in certain product categories.
Yeah.
But there was no smartphone before the iPhone.
No.
The smartphones was the BlackBerry with the big keyboard, plastic keyboard on it.
You had a few touchscreens that were garbage.
You took an evolution of what an MP3 player was, which was the best MP3 player around, the iPod, and it took Apple killing their own product category to create a new wave of products. You don't see that innovation. Yeah. And again, we've been on this tangent before. I don't mean to get back on that tangent.
But it's
my main thing is with regards to updates, I simply want to ask that question of, should certain categories, because going back to Sony, someone who I think it's few and far between, but at least does it right. And again, they're lackluster sometimes. Sometimes the last PS5 update or PlayStation 4 update, it's a quality of life improvement of fixing bugs.
Yeah.
But it's nothing, fancy. Yet at the same time, I still think of Sony and where they're involved in so many different other areas, such as even at work with broadcast technologies, or in other facets of professional quality. And I think they learned a lesson in terms of, you have to go in with a certainty of, if you're going to do an update or you're going to improve upon something, it can't break what came before it.
Yeah.
Or it can't break what people know you are responsible for creating the de facto way of which something operates. And I think Apple is so stingy upon being in this innovation or not innovation, but in terms of iterations of what they've come before, but they're not professional. They're mostly consumer product technology. Yes, they want to stake this claim as no, but our products, like a MacBook Pro or an iPhone or an iPad, they have professional quality entrenched and built in. So they can easily en masse be up. And trust me, there's a little bit of happiness that comes along with I know there's no iteration in an iPad that I buy in the store versus an iPad that I use at work. There may be like a work profile on it, but essentially it's the same machine.
Yeah.
There's a lot of comfort in that because the scalability is ridiculous on that degree. And you can sell many more devices in that regard across all different, fields, whether it's consumer or professional. But with the lack of professional expertise when it comes to dealing with professional environments, I think that's where you see that slow. Now it becomes a bigger problem because you see that slow involvement of, iPhones are the de facto in the phone world across the board. And it took them being the first on the scene to claim that, and they don't want to let go of that. iPhones are still the largest and biggest revenue for Apple, bar none. Yet at the same time, they still, I think, have a long way to come in terms of serving a customer base that is constantly using their devices to the scale that they do, and yet encountering the same problems that should not be a hindrance. It's like, where in the world are these problems? Why are they existing for as long as they do? And maybe if they do, either you've got a problem in your software development team, or maybe you should understand that, hey, that's just par for the course with how many people we service, and we need to release these things with more frequency. I don't know. It's just a huge issue that I've had with Apple for the last several years, that I feel like they just have not maintained the quality of service that they were known for originally. And they could argue all day that they service a wider customer base. And I'm like, okay, but again, I'm the customer. I don't give a damn about that. It's your job to fix it. You're the $1 trillion company here. You're the ones that have the resources to make sure these problems are not continually creeping up.
I agree, yeah.
The fact that I had to completely uninstall and reinstall, I had to completely wipe my MacBook.
Oh, yeah. I remember
and
that.
reinstall the oldest OS because of stupid monitor. A monitor issue, an external monitor problem where you wouldn't allow a modern monitor to run at 60 hertz. It was limited at 30. And maybe they fixed it. But it's just a glaring oversight for someone that big for a major update. It just, again, when the company starts breaking more than it fixes with each of their iterations, there's something wrong. Something is wrong. And so, and based on that, I have to say,
that's why
updates
Sean's
should come out sooner.
them.
He's stated
out.
as
He's
much.
getting out.
He's already, he's changed his watch?
He has a different watch now, and he did say that when his contract with his phone was out,
he's going to possibly get an Android. But the thing is he doesn't want to go Samsung, which is the other major player. And I'm like, what other Android are you going to get? Are you going to get a Google phone?
Ew. I'm not giving Google my money.
I don't want them. I don't trust them. I don't trust
They're no better than
Huawei
Apple.
You can't
I'm
even
sorry.
get.
Google's no better than Apple.
Oh, no. Not by any
means.
means.
He's going to get a Microsoft phone. Windows phone. Oh.
It's like, man, I don't need anything but my Zune.
Yeah. Oh.
Developers. All right. Somebody go look that up on YouTube. It's a fun time.
You're a fun time.
Steve Ballmer. All righty, guys. That's it for our episode tonight. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We love all of our fans out there.
It was a fun show.
You know what they could do if they really love us back?
They could say, hey, we want to talk to you through electronic mail.
That breakthrough invention, that doesn't need any updating.
No, it's pretty sound now,
Yeah.
Apple couldn't screw it over too much.
They've tried.
They have.
Like all their stuff.
But if you were interested in shooting us an email, you could easily do that by emailing rmpodcast@redmoonproductions.com.
Just gorgeous. I love that. Every time you say it, rmpodcast@redmoonproductions.com.
Yeah, it's fun.
It's just beautiful. And you can like, share, subscribe. All of our social media accounts right there at the bottom of your screen. Red Moon Book on Facebook, Red Moon Tweet on Twitter, and Red Moon Pics on Instagram. And of course, you can always subscribe and like, share on YouTube. We would love for our numbers to get even
Build us
higher.
up.
Subscribe.
Higher and higher.
Red Moon Productions on YouTube.
Your
Search for us.
love
Like
is
our page.
lifting me higher.
That's beautiful. Sean's
Sounded
probably
better than John Goodman.
that wasn't it. Oh wait.
I said sounded better than John Goodman. No, that
Oh, it
wasn't.
did.
That
Okay,
was
that
not,
wasn't the song. I was like, that was no.
No.
It's like I haven't heard that song in forever.
That was in Ghostbusters too.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
It's been a while. All right, guys. Maybe Sean will be back next week.
We don't know. The
We'll have
plaque
to talk
fell,
to the-
so the Commanders.
Doesn't bode well.
Well, they're not doing anything better.
Yeah,
can resurrect him. It's not like they got any
Yeah,
playoff
that's true.
games to go to.
They'll probably do that. They'll probably resurrect him for next week because they're not doing nothing, just like Brady. Brady gave up his wife.
Well, neither Rodgers isn't doing anything either. So
Nope. But Brady gave it all up.
he did. Brady gave it. Like he still didn't make the playoff. Well, he didn't. He made it, but they lost.
In the wild card round.
Cowboys. Hey, Cowboys have been good this year.
I know. They've come back. Look.
Let them hit it. Hey.
Let them hit it. Let them hit it. Get that, Giselle.
Get it.
Oh. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of the Red Moon Podcast. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Until next time, I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside not our normal new host. He'll be back next week, but our other host.
Yep.
Yep. That's it.
Babble On.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. For more reviews, previous podcast shows, and everything Red Moon, visit our website, redmoonproductions.com. You can also like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for Red Moon Productions, LLC. We'll see you at the movies.